Hi, in this video, you're going to see me shaping some dough. So this is your sourdough dough shaping video. Show the dough who's boss. Hi, I'm Elaine from Foodbod Sourdough. Welcome back to my kitchen. In this video, I'm going to show you how I shape dough for your most typical loaves, including a nice round loaf, oval loaf, sandwich loaf, and I might show you a few other bits. I have a nice array of bowls of dough around me to play with, but the aim here is to just show you the simplest way of shaping dough. Something that I included in my latest book, in my sourdough Bible, is there are 11 master recipes. So there's the master versions of a round loaf, an oval loaf, a sandwich loaf, smaller loaves, rolls, focaccia, things like that. So some of this video is to complement that so that you can see it in action. I try and write it as clearly as possible to give you a written explanation, but I know it's often easier to be able to see it as well. So all of the doughs that I've made are standard master recipe strong white bread flour doughs. So in all of them I've used Matthews Cotswold flour, Churchill white. So that's what all the doughs have been made from, using my standard master recipe. So we have 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of water, 500 grams of flour and salt to taste. We are now coming into spring here, as you can see, with the lovely light behind me that's driving James crazy. So at the moment is a perfect time for making sourdough because temperature-wise it's ideal. So I haven't needed to change any aspect of the recipe. I've already made the doughs. I've already got these baked. This video is focusing on the shaping. So if you need to see the full video on how I make the dough or how it's baked or any more, we will include links to those at the end of the video, but also in the video description so that you've got all the information you need. But the aim of this one is to solely be about shaping. So one of my biggest tips, the biggest tip really when it comes to shaping your dough, is to not be scared of it. It tends to be something that I see a lot, especially with people that are coming new to sourdough, are very tentative, created this lovely big bowl of proved dough, and they don't want to spoil it, they don't want to burst bubbles. But actually, the more tentative you are, the more delicate you are at handling it, the more your dough's gonna just spread when you turn it out. So the biggest tip is you need to be really firm with how you handle the dough. You need to really pull it together, which is what you're going to see me do. Because if you've made your dough well enough, you're not going to be able to squash it anyway. You're not going to be able to ruin it. The only reason a dough will collapse or not hold its shape is if there's been an issue earlier on in the dough making process, not at this point. So if you have a dough that's not doing the things that you think it should do, we have a whole video which answers all of the frequently asked questions I get about dough making. We have all the answers for you. We're just not putting them all in the one video because then it would be about 3 hours long. But you can find them all within the channel. So I'm going to move this stuff around and get some bowls of dough out to start showing you shaping for a round one, shaping for an oval one, your sandwich loaf, and then we might chop some up so you can see about shaping some rolls. So James, we need to get the bowls of dough on the go. So here we are. We've got my bowls of dough that I've proved on the counter overnight, exactly as per my master recipe. We've got our shower caps over the top, just the best possible way to protect your dough when you're proving them. And here is, I mean, look at that, a very lovely bowl of proved dough. So with the first one, we're going to go into the round banneton. So the banneton I'm using, the ones I always use, This is a wood pulp banneton. It's 21.5 centimeters across. They tend to be listed as for 500 to 750 grams of dough, which is a bit less than this weighs, but because it's snug, actually it's to your benefit. So they're really nice for shaping and holding these doughs. So we've got rice flour in here. Rice flour is the best thing for going into your banneton because it's going to stop the dough from sticking. Because it's gluten-free, it's non-porous, so it's the perfect thing. I've already got some rice flour still sitting in there, but we're just going to add a bit more in. I'm just going to grab my drink, excuse me, in my very huge mug that someone suggested in one of the previous videos I should try baking bread in. So the key thing, as I said previously, is making sure that you are really firm with this dough. I know it's done all this lovely hard work and it looks beautiful, and you've got possibly a load of bubbles and a load of action going on underneath, but you need to be really firm with it at this point. So we're going to do exactly the same action we use as when making the dough. So I've got thumb and forefinger picking up the first bit of dough. I'm going to tuck it right across. I'm going to do the same again, up and right across, and each time it needs to be right across the bowl, up and over. So it's exactly the same action. We're coming all the way across. You can see it's blowing bubbles, okay? That's lovely because that shows we've got a nice active dough, but we don't want them. It's going to leave holes in your dough. So we keep on pushing it across, and can you see I am pushing into it? So we're actually pushing into the bowl. So nice and strong. So we've got this nice, strong, sturdy ball of dough. And what you'll see is, because this is so well made, it's such a nice dough, you can't actually squash it if you tried. And actually it wouldn't matter if you did, because if you've made it well enough, it will bounce back up anyway when it bakes. But we want it nice and strong, and you'll get to a point where you actually can't do it anymore. So you've got now your nice ball of dough. So this is what we want, that nice, strong ball of dough. You want to be able to hold that in your hand. If it starts to flop and it's starting to spread around you, try putting it back in the bowl, putting it tighter together again, or it does come back to maybe your dough needed tweaking before now. So that's our nice round ball of dough. It's going to go into that pre-prepared banneton. We're going to put a bit of rice flour over the top, which I do out of habit, so it doesn't stick when we put it into the pan. Shower cap goes over the top, and that then goes into the fridge. So the question I'm often asked about, does it have to do this time in the fridge? Can't I just bake it? You could just bake it if you wanted to. But what it does when you put it in the fridge is it helps develop the flavour, and it helps hold that shape. So if you tried to bake that straight off now, it's not going to come out quite as well as the others do, but you could. So this one's going to go into the fridge, and then we'll come back with another one. Look how clean that bowl is. This also shows you how happy that dough was because of how cleanly it's come out the bowl, but also because I scrape around it as I'm making the dough. So this shows you as well that this is a happy dough. So let's get rid of that one. And let's go again. So this one, this is going to be for your oval. So again, wood pulp banneton, because they're so nice. Again, it will be listed as for 500 to 700 grams of dough. So we're going to do the same thing again, doing it in the bowl, but this time we're just going to manipulate it so it's for more of an oval shape. So we're going to pull the dough up and over again, and we're going to pull it right, look, can you see the bubble? Going to put it all the way across. So this time we're just pulling it all the way across so that we've got a line of dough here, and then we're going to turn it all the way around, tuck it in from the side and then pull this side across the top. So what you're doing is, again, creating another line there, but you're creating more of an oval shape than the round. You can go back over the other way if you want to. And this is what I always do. I never turn it out onto the counter. You don't need to do any of that envelope stuff, that knitting it together at the top stuff. You can if you like doing that. If that's what works for you and that's what you like doing, always do it. It's not anything I ever do. Literally, that's all I do. So that's then coming out of the bowl into our banneton, smooth side down, bit over the top again, and that's for your oval loaf. So that is what's going to turn into this. We're going to do pretty much the same thing again to show you how it then goes into your sandwich tin. So let me get rid of that one, excuse me. Dough number 3, we're going to put this one into our sandwich loaf pan. So this is a Pullman pan. When you buy them, they come with a lid. Most of my recipes, we use them without the lid. So that is what I baked this in yesterday. Okay, so this is for our sandwich loaves. The question of, do you need to score it, that keeps coming up? No, you don't. I never score sandwich loaves, but that's also up to you. So we're going to do pretty much the same again as we did for the oval loaf. It's just that this time we're going to turn it up the other way. So I've already cut the paper, and actually I've already used it. I used it yesterday for baking that loaf. So the paper I've already cut for going into the pan. Again, I have a video on that if you need to see it. So make sure your paper is out in front of you, and we go again. So we're doing the same again, always. That's all I pick up initially. So I'm just using thumb, first few fingers. I broke my nail just before filming this, which is really annoying. But anyway, carrying on. We're doing exactly the same again. So we're pulling it into our line in the middle. So look, can you see how lively it is? Into the line in the middle of the pan. We're turning it round. You can tuck the ends if you want to, just to release them. Do the same again, all the way across. So basically we're creating a nice big fat sausage of dough. Look at that. You're going to bring that out into your hand. See how nicely it sits there again. It's holding its shape because we made it so well. That we're going to lay onto the paper, and because you've got the paper there in front of you, you can just pick it up, use the paper to slot it in to your pan. So as simple as that, basically. But I'm going to give you a little tip. In all of these cases, if you find the whole shaping thing, the doing it for the longer banneton, the doing it for a sandwich loaf or anything like that, as a bit scary and a bit of a faff, it's just pull it into a ball. You can very easily pull it into a ball, push it, put it into the pan again, lay it on the paper, put it into the pan, and push it into the, let it slot into the pan, and it will take the shape of the pan for you. The same with the oval one. So this, with its big, nice round belly over here, this loaf, all I did was pull the dough into a tight ball and put that into the oval banneton. So if all of this shaping stuff scares the life out of you and you want an easier way of doing it, just shape it into a ball, put it into a ball, put it into this, smooth side up, put it into an oval banneton, smooth side down. It will fill to take the space. So that's my big tip coming from this, is just don't get too stressed about creating these perfectly shaped doughs to go into these things, because when it goes through the second proof again, it's actually going to take on the shape of whatever you've put it in anyway. So that's your alternative. Just shape it into a ball, plonk it in the middle of the paper, into the pan, it will fill and spread it. This one is now going to go into the fridge. I will return. Because I do have some doughs that I prepped beforehand to be able to show you, I am going to put a couple in the oven just so that you can see what they look like at a slightly later stage before we shape some others. So here, look at that! Here is very beautiful, very smooth sandwich dough. So I've done exactly as I've shown you, and this has now been in the fridge for I think about 24 hours, and it's a perfect way to get your sandwich loaves to prove nice and slowly and evenly. So this one's going to go into the oven, my usual cold oven jobby. You can see the full video for making sandwich loaves, we've got that. So let me just get rid of this one. And then this one is a round dough from one that I made previously. So one that's been in the fridge for a few hours that I had proved overnight to also be able to show you. So as you can see, it's just filled the banneton a little bit more. So I'm going to turn this one out into the pan. Previously used paper, because I always reuse it. Pan over the top. And if you are new to me and new to anything that I do, you can see this in more detail. So this is what we're looking for. This is our lovely happy dome of dough. So I'm going to score this as I typically would, coming into the middle because it helps it to grow. Just as a tip, if you're doing an oval one, score along the line where the banneton's been. When you turn it out, you'll have a line where you can score that along. But for this, I'm just going to score it into the middle, and then it will come out just like the ones I've got next to me. Make sure you're scoring it nice and deeply. Look how that is holding its shape. And that is why it goes in the fridge, so that you can do that. You can take your time with it. I can stand here and talk about it and it's not spreading. So that is the sign of a good strong dough, but also one that's been in the cold that's helped it to keep its shape. So I'm going to stick that one in my other oven and then we'll get back to shaping. Something to mention about when you're using different flour in your dough. So as I said, these doughs have all been made using just strong white bread flour, and you can see how lovely and firm the dough is. If you make dough with whole grain flours, so some of the flours we've got here, if you've got some with, say, some einkorn in, some whole grain spelt that's hiding at the back, wholemeal flour sometimes does it. So, but if you've got dough that has got a portion of a whole grain flour in, even if it's all whole grain flour, what might happen when you pull the dough together to shape it is it collapses. And you go, oh, but it's okay. It's the nature of the flour. It's what happens. Still continue to do the same thing. Pull it into your tight ball. Get it into your banneton. And when you bake, it will come back up. So don't worry about it seeming to collapse. If you've got an excessively bubbly dough that's overproofed or it's too wet, that will collapse. And that won't gain any extra shape. But that's what we've answered in those previous videos, in those other videos. So if you've got a dough that's seeming to collapse, try not to worry about it if you've included some whole grain flour in it. Something else to know, once you've got to this point, so this dough is your fully proofed bowl of dough. Once you've got to this point, you can do anything with that. So whatever you want to turn it into, this dough is now sufficiently proved, you can do anything with it. So this can become a single loaf like any of these. You could chop it in half, make it into a couple of smaller loaves. You could chop it up and make it into rolls. You can flop it into a pan to become focaccia. You can do whatever you want with it. Once you've got to this point with the dough, basically the world is your oyster, so it can become whatever you want it to be. So I've got a couple of smaller ones here just to show a couple of other things with. Now, with smaller doughs, you don't have to have smaller bowls. I just happen to have them. So let's just move that one out of the way. So if you are going to go down the focaccia route, all we need to do, focaccia is the easiest thing in the world to make, because it doesn't matter kind of how floppy the dough is. It doesn't really matter what you do with it. Typically, I would have olive oil. On this occasion, I've got rapeseed oil in my pan. And all you're going to do is literally flop the dough into the pan. There's nothing special that you need to do with it at this point. This is me just being pedantic and getting all the bits of dough out of the bowl, because why not? I put all that effort into making it. And once it's in the pan, just swish it around a bit in the oil. Typically, I would then cover this, let it prove again before I'm then going to put it into the oven. But just for speed, just to show, and because it's been requested, when it comes to baking it, all you need to do is dimple it. So your fingertips are going into the dough. You can get some oil on them if you want. All you're doing, just pushing down into the dough. And again, don't worry about it, because it's going to come back up. You can see as you're pushing it, you can see the life in it. If you wanted to, at this point, you could put stuff on top of it, a bit of rosemary, a bit of chopped garlic, anything really. But that is the simplest thing to do when it comes to shaping. Plop it in the pan, stick your fingers in it, bake it. I will bake this a bit later because I've got things in my ovens. But at this point, I'm just going to cover it with another pan just to protect it for now, and I'll bake it later. But that is the easiest thing to do with your focaccia. And if you have got that sloppy dough that you're not too sure what to do with it, you don't think it's going to hold its shape, plop it in a pan, turn it into focaccia. So that's your easy, simple shaping. Excuse me, I'm going to wash my hands for the next one. With this dough I have in front of me, I'm going to roll my dough up to make rolls. So what we're doing is looking at these, my master recipe rolls, and with these are ones that we bake in a pan. So I'm going to show you how I roll them for these, and there's a few variations in the book. You can see we worked very hard to shoot as many of the shots as we could of this to show you the process of doing it. So this is going to be the visual to support that. So I've got my dough. I made this as a smaller one just so that I would have some different doughs to show you. So I'm going to use my smaller pan. So I've already lined it. So this is my cake tin liner, the ones I like to use a lot. It's a siliconized paper cake tin liner. So we're going to have that ready. I've got my scales so that we can weigh out the dough. Excuse me, the dog is walking around. If you can hear the tiptoeing, he's just having a little look-see. So I'm going to put some rice flour on my counter. And this is one of the rare times I actually turn the dough out, because I tend to do everything possible in the bowl, because I'm not a big fan of mess, to be honest. So I'm going to turn it out. And because this is a 300 gram a dough made with 300 grams of flour, I've already done the maths. So what we want is portions that are going to be 60 grams of dough each. So I've got my scales. I'm just going to chop this up into small portions. If I was really good, it would have come straight off at 60, wouldn't it? Ah, oh, so close. So close. So I'm going to portion this up into my 60s. it might be that at this point, James makes this bit go faster, just so that you don't have to watch me doing this over and over again. I've now got my 9 portions. And what I'm going to do is, again, on the table, I'm going to do a similar thing as I would do with a bigger dough. And I'm going to pull it up and over itself to make a nice tidy little ball. And then when it gets to this point, fold it over onto the surface and give it a little bit of shape. You can go like that, or you can just do it, try and find a bit without the flour so it'll stick to it, just using your fingers to push it round into the shape. So we're going to have that nice little ball, and that one I'm just going to place right in the middle, and the others will go round it. And what will happen is there'll be a bit of space around them initially, and then I'll put the lid on, put it in the fridge again, and let them prove again so that they grow up and start to kiss each other before we then bake them. Look at that. So again, look how firm I am, how much I'm pushing on this, really pushing hard on it to create that shape. Look at that little ball. Let's go again. So same again, I put my finger in the middle and put it up and over so that we're pulling it into our nice small ball. You can see little bubbles coming up. Even hear them bursting every so often. Tucking it over, squishing it, and then if I was Paul Hollywood, I would be doing the two at the same time. Look at that, nice little ball. So I'm going to keep going. Something to keep in mind with this, because we are proving again and we're baking in the pan, is they're going to support each other. So again, don't get too precious or too stressed about the shaping. You could also do the same thing and lay them on a pan to bake them separately, if that's what you would prefer. I'll stop talking now and whiz through the last few. So there we go. There's our lovely last little ball of dough. So we've got them all sitting in the pan. We're making our little sunflower, and as they prove, they will fill the pan and they will get snug, and then when you bake them, it can come out in a whole piece. You can then pull them apart. So those are my simple, easy, bake it in a pan sourdough rolls. Let's put the lid on. Put them in the fridge. Again, if you prove it again in the fridge, the cold will let them prove slowly and really keep their shape nicely. You could bake them immediately. You could do this and bake them straight off and they will still rise back up. But I would highly recommend giving them the chance to do that proving again. So this one's going to go in the fridge, and then we'll do another play. So because I've got the dough and because it's a bit of fun, what I'm going to do is just show some other options. So I've got my pan here. It's just lined with a sheet of parchment paper that I've used before. And what I'm going to do is, again, plonk this dough onto the surface. Technical term. Look at that. Look, isn't it beautiful? Look at that. Look at that bubble. Look at all the texture in it. That's what you've created. That's the hard work that you've put in. So once you know what you're going to do with it, you'll probably put more effort than I'm going to right now into weighing out even amounts, but I just want to show how I would shape something for a baguette, because it's something that I get asked about, so we might as well do it. In my third book, My Easy Everyday Sourdough Bread Baking, I've got a really simple cheat baguette process and recipe where you don't need to be really worrying too much about the process of shaping it. So all I'm going to do is just chop a bit off just to show you. So I would go down exactly the same route as I've just gone down, of pulling this into this nice tight ball. So this one's going to be bigger. It's going to be much bigger than the other ones we've just done. Then I just want to fold it over itself and roll it out into our baguette. Now this is sourdough, so this is going to want to take a while to actually then spread out. But this is what I would be doing to be creating baguettes, but also I do a similar thing when I'm going to make ciabatta. So I would then leave that now for a while to settle, because it's decided it's going to pull itself together a bit. Once it settles, you'll be able to spread it out and elongate it. Alternatively, you can do it start with a longer piece. So what you've seen me do is turn the dough out onto the counter and start playing around. Of course, as is typical and as always happens, someone's then walked in the door and interrupted everything we're doing. So what you'll see is I've been playing. So I've done the same thing as I did before with creating rounds, and just created an oval. And what we can do, it needs to give. We need it to give a bit before we can do anything with it, to be able to squash it down and turn it into a ciabatta. Alternatively, you can make it smaller, a flatter oval, use it to make pita breads. You could take a little bit of dough, turn it into a little round, flatten it out, do whatever you liked with it. Throw that in an air fryer and see what it does. And you'll be surprised, because it will puff up and it will give you a pita of sorts or a roll of sorts. It's really cool. You can just shove it in the air fryer and it will just spring up and do something for you. This is also when you could give kids dough like this, tell them to play with it. Play with it, turn it into something. Make a great long piece of rope like this. Turn it into something that's, just a nice big squidged snake of some sort. It's literally what you might not do in your household because you're a bit scared and because you don't have as much dough as I do. But if you just fancy making yourself an extra bowl of dough to play with, stick it on the table and work with it like Play-Doh. Turn it into some shapes. Have some fun with it and see what you can do with it. But also, it might stop you from being a bit too scared about handling it. Because I can tell you, I can go like that and squash this and it will still bake and become something, because of all of the power that's in there from our starter. So this was just a little bit of fun, really, to end this with, because I had this extra bowl of dough. Much as James is now crying, going, that could have been a loaf for me. Play with it. I highly recommend you play with it and see what it does. Because at the end of the day, you will have bread. It will turn into something because it's full of starter and it's full of power. So I'm going to stop playing with that. I highly recommend playing with your dough, but the biggest thing, if you take one thing out of this video, it's to be really firm. Be really brave with your dough. See what you can create. See what you fancy playing with. See what you fancy creating. See, I can't help myself. There's dough in front of me. I just want to play with it. But the main things are, when you are shaping and you're going to do something that's going to go into the banneton, make sure you're being really, really firm with it. If you're going to start playing around with it like this, remember it's going to need a chance to just give if you want to try and make a bit more of a shape with it.
What do you mean by give?
Because once you start playing with it, the gluten starts to tighten up again. So if you leave it to actually relax, it will be easier to then shape and do something with. And this is very typical, like when you're trying to make pizza bases. Sometimes you need to allow the dough a bit of time to just relax again so that it can help you manipulate it. So if I try to now push this out into something, it's not going to do it.
About at room temperature? Like
yeah, at room temperature. Just let it give and relax. You might need to leave it for 5-10 minutes and come back to it, and you'll find it'll be easier to stretch. Thank you very much for asking. The beauty of James not being a baker is he's going to ask the questions that I might not think of including. Although you'd think by now, after all these years and all these books, you'd think you'd be a sourdough expert. I reckon you could make it. I reckon you could. So I'm going to keep playing with this dough and say goodbye for now. I hope it's been useful. Please do look for the links to be able to see how to make the dough, to be able to see our sandwich loaves, everything else. But have a go. Just have a go, have a play. Do your shaping, don't be scared of it. And if all else fails, shape your dough into a ball and shove it into your pan or your banneton, because it will work. I promise you it will work. All right, I'm going to stop playing. That's goodbye from me. Thank you for joining me in my kitchen. I hope you found that useful. Until next time.